In this tutorial we're going to be looking at adding walls to our cave map. Up to this point, if you haven't been following along, we have pulled in our survey notes, imported them by going to File and then down to Place, and brought those scans in. We've also drawn a line plot and stations. So if you don't have survey notes, you will need to get those in order to follow along with this tutorial. So you have to draw those and then scan them in. Another thing that you're going to need to do is create a walls layer if you haven't already by clicking on the new layer icon right there, or going to the drop down menu and going to new layer and naming that walls. And one other thing that you'll need is your stroke palette. If you don't have your stroke palette, it's probably, well, it is under Window, and then you'll want to go down to Stroke and check that. Now yours won't show up in the same location mine is. Most likely it'll show up in one of these nested groups of palettes. So, and it should show here in the front after you come over and go to Window and you check that. It should show up. So you want to grab that. And one last thing that we'll be using, and that is the pencil icon. Now, I need to change something here before we begin. Okay, so you'll need the pencil icon selected. Alright, so let's go back to our layers palette. There are a few things that I want to do. I want to turn off, first of all, I don't need to see my station or my line plot. And any element that I don't need to see in order to work on another layer, I can turn that off because it'll just get in the way, and visually I might not be able to see something that I need to draw. So I'm going to turn those off, and I'm going to make sure I lock the layer just in case I accidentally click on stations, grab this, and then start dragging something around, because then it'll be in a completely weird place. So I want to lock those down to make sure I can't accidentally edit them. Make sure that I'm clicked on the walls layer and that it's showing. If it's not showing, then you'll get an icon like this that won't let me do anything because it's not showing. Or if it's locked, also I can't do anything to it because it's locked down. So if you ever see an icon like that, you know what's going on. So let's turn that back on. Make sure we're selected on walls. Grab my pencil tool, and I use the pencil tool for drawing walls just because it seems to be fairly easy to use for me. You can choose to use one of the other tools as you learn what those are. And it's pretty simple in how we use the pencil tool now. Well, actually, before I start using it, I need to make sure that I have a thickness to the stroke. If I start drawing, watch what happens here. So I draw, and it looks like I have a nice blue line, but it's really thin, and I'm all complaining, and then I come and I grab this, and I want to move it or something, and it's gone. And I get all frustrated. Well, the reason why it's not gone, it's still there, but if you look down here, the stroke, the line, has nothing, has no thickness to it. It's a line, but it never shows up. So I'm going to select that and delete it. Grab my pencil tool, and before you use the pencil tool, make sure you set a stroke. So I'm going to come into my stroke palette. I can do it here in the stroke palette, or you'll notice in the properties bar that I also have a stroke. And I'm going to make that 2 points. It's a pretty good size for the walls of your cave map. So 2 point is good for me. Or I can change it down here. And another thing you might want to change is the color. So if I have black and I want blue or green or whatever, or it's somehow been set to green or red, I can double click on this. It'll open my color picker, and I'll change that to black. Just drag it all the way down to the corner and hit OK. Alright, so with my stroke set, my pencil selected, my walls layer selected and turned on, I can now click, hold the mouse down, and draw. And right now I'm seeing no thickness to it because I'm not going to see anything until I let it go. I mean, I'm going to let it go right there. Alright. So there's my line. If I want to go back and fine tune it, what I can do is start drawing on the line. So I'm going to click right here, and I'm going to smooth that out a little bit. Or let's say I do some huge blunder where I go like that. I can start clicking on the line and then draw where it should be. Now I need to make sure I come back into the line. If I don't come back into the line, let's see what happens. So if I start drawing here and don't come all the way back to the line, it just gets rid of everything from that point. So I need to make sure that I redraw into the line. Let's fine tune that a little. Another thing to be aware of is if I have a line, a wall like this, where it's eventually going to come together, if I draw all the way to the end and then I continue drawing over the top just a little, that it connects it together as one line. All right, so let's continue on this wall over here. If I were to click here at this point with that selected and start drawing, something's going to happen. It looks like everything worked out all right, but if I zoom in here, that solid shape now has been broken. Notice that it's not connected anymore. So I want to fix that. See, if you want to, some of the keyboard shortcuts that I'm using right now to zoom in and out and pan around like that, I've got the pencil tool selected, but you notice it lets me drag around. If I hold the space bar down, that's the temporary keyboard shortcut for the hand tool, the panning tool, which as long as I've got it held down, it's the pan tool. As soon as I let it go of that, it turns back into the pencil tool. If I want to zoom, Control space bar, hold those two down, and your tool temporarily turns into the zoom tool. And I can click, or I can click and drag. Let's see, click and drag like that, and it'll zoom in. Control 0 fills the artboard to your view here. And let's see what else we got. Control plus and minus. So minus zooms out, plus zooms in. And if I do Control Alt space bar or Control Option space bar, then I get the zoom out tool. So those are some keyboard shortcuts that I use quite a bit. All right, let's undo what we just did. I'm going to hit Control Z or Edit and undo. And let's see. Oh, one other thing I should show you going off on these keyboard shortcuts here. I talked about all these keyboard shortcuts. You can also do the same thing by going to View. There's Zoom In, Zoom Out. That's the slow and tedious way to do it. I also have over here, there's my pan tool, there's my zoom tool. So if you're not a keyboard shortcut person and like doing it the tedious way, you can do that. All right, back to the pencil. Okay, so in order for it not to disconnect those lines, I need to select off of it. So I'll grab my black arrow tool, click over here, and grab my pencil tool. Now you see this is deselected. I can start drawing, and it doesn't separate and break that shape. So let's continue drawing along here. And there we go. Probably a little too much on that. So I just hit undo. Let's grab a line. And now I'm noticing something. If I zoom in here, let's zoom in close and take a look. Notice that my edges come to a really sharp point, and that can look kind of ugly. Not so much like a real pen when you print it off. So in order to smooth that, I'm going to go into my stroke palette, and here I have properties for the endpoints and corners. So if I click this, it makes it a rounded endpoint. I'm going to grab this one and make sure I do the same thing. So I just grab my black arrow, click it, and then change it. And now it gives a nice smooth round shape to the line. And once I make that adjustment, it should inherit it as I continue drawing. So with this selected, when I draw the next line, it's smooth on the edges as well. One place where you might have problems, if you haven't locked your layers down. So I haven't locked these. Let's say I didn't lock survey notes, and I grab this and I accidentally click over here in the empty space. Now it doesn't look like I have anything selected until I zoom out. If I zoom out, you notice that I've accidentally selected the scan that I brought in. So now here's a problem that you might run into. If I grab the pencil tool and I start drawing, I have a thin line with no stroke and it's red, and you'll notice that what's happened is it's inherited the stroke for the scan, which is no stroke, no thickness at all. And then another thing that it's done is because I've accidentally selected the scan, since I wasn't locked down, I'm now drawing my wall on survey notes, which that's bad. So I'm going to delete that, make sure I'm back on my walls, click that object. Actually, let's grab this one and continue drawing. Now if I continue drawing, let's lock this down to make sure we don't accidentally click it again. Continue drawing. I can continue my walls at that point. So let's come back over here. Now I'm not going to have this problem because this isn't selected, so I'm going to the problem where we separated the line. So I can start there. Oops, that was a mistake. So in order to fix that mistake, I'll just start drawing on the line back here and continue along. And I think that that is about it for walls. I think you got a good handle on it, so we will move on from here.